how did that change how you do your work?
I still have incredibly aggressive goals. I still go after it, but it's not my identity, and I'm not attached to the outcome.
So you'll do your part, but whether it comes to what it does or not, it doesn't make or break who you are.
Correct. That's not me. That's not
Right.
what defines me. And it doesn't mean I don't care.
Right.
And
No,
that's a really important
Yeah.
distinction, because I
Yeah.
care a lot. And it's important to me that we accomplish what we say we're going to accomplish. But that still doesn't define who I am.
Right.
That's not my identity. It's not me. And if it were to go away tomorrow, it's okay.
I'm Art Blanchford, and this is Life in Transition, a podcast about making the most of the changes we're given. As a married father of 3 teenagers, a longtime global business executive and adventurer, I've been through hundreds of transitions in my life. Many have been difficult, but all have led to a depth and richness I could never have imagined. You'll get to hear all about them on this podcast so that together we can create more love and joy in our lives, no matter what transitions we are going through. Welcome back to another episode of Life in Transition podcast. And I'm super excited and honored to have my good friend, Sherry Vasa, with me for my second face-to-face podcast. And Sherry and I worked together in Asia for a long time, before that in North America. And Sherry's now CHRO of a major global automotive supply company. And she's also a mother and grandmother. So Sherry, I'm very, very happy to have you here. So welcome to Life in Transition podcast.
Well, thanks, Art. First of all, it's an honor to be here. I'm a fan. I'm a follower. So to be your second in-person guest, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to the conversation. It's going to be fun.
Thank you. As we talked about in our pre-interview, that normally I start these with just asking the question of what has been a major or significant transition for you in your life. And in the pre-interview, you talked about that learning to be at peace while being in a crazy, tough, demanding professional environment. And that one I'm profoundly curious about myself. So if that still resonates with you, I would love to explore that for my personal reasons. But I think a lot of listeners also struggle with that. So does that still feel like the right transition to talk about today? Or is there something more pertinent and more present for you?
I think it's absolutely been the most life-changing for me, of having a major shift in my heart, my brain, and how I approach work and life in general, and kind of what led to that, because it's made a huge difference.
No, that's awesome. And I can see the difference. I can feel the difference. As I said last time we were together, I asked you, I'm like, what's
new?
What's going on? What's new? Because I could feel just being in your energy. It's very different than it was before. And you didn't quit your job and go off to a cave for 6 months like a lot of people do.
Right.
To reach that. So I'm really curious about that. I'm really thankful to dig in about it. Tell us a little bit about how that came to be. How did you make that transition?
Well,
What are the steps?
I think similar to a lot of people, it comes from a bit of a crisis
Yeah, for
that drives that change and forces that reflection and that transformation to something different. And for me, that crisis came in really the form of a health crisis. But even if I back up a little bit, before that came, we both worked for the same company. We lived in the same crazy world, living in many different countries,
Right.
traveling like crazy people. And just before COVID hit, I made the decision to do something different, to move on from that position and go to something new. And I didn't know what that was going to be. So I left with a leap of faith, so to speak.
So you did have the courage to leave without knowing what the end game was going to be, saying this has been too much and it's driving health issues and I need to change.
At the time, it wasn't driving health issues.
Okay.
It wasn't an issue. It was more of, okay, I'm ready for something new.
Okay.
I'm ready for something different.
Okay.
And when I made the decision and said, okay, I'm committed now, I'm going to leave. Well, then COVID happened.
Right.
And so now I'm in a weird place. I don't have a place to live because I left my place.
'Cause you were living
I was
in
still
Europe.
working. I was in Europe.
And you had left Europe.
I actually packed everything up with the intention I'd live in an apartment there until my assignment was done.
Right.
Well, we came back to the U.S. to look for a place to live on March 6th or 7th
And got stuck.
and
here.
got stuck. So now I'm living in my daughter's guest room apartment out of a suitcase. All of my things are someplace in the world because they've been shipped and packed, but I can't go back and do what I was going to do for 6 months. It's really hard to move forward because now I'm managing crisis at work.
Right, with COVID.
And then, but not ready to think about the next company because the world's in chaos.
Right.
So
you had turned in your intention to leave, but you had a long period. And then that period, COVID hit.
Yes.
And then you're the chief HR officer
Yes.
trying to manage all this COVID stuff, which was a huge challenge from your daughter's guest room away from headquarters, 6,000 miles.
Away from headquarters. And in the periphery is this, what am I going to do next?
Right.
Now what?
Right. So you've turned in your resignation.
Oh, shit.
You've got 120 hours of work a week to do to manage COVID.
Yeah.
But you have nothing after that. And the world's turning upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about some uncertainty going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what gave you the courage, Sherry, to walk away? I mean, driven by somewhat of a crisis, but not so much, it sounds like, at that point, to decide you want to do something different in the peak of your earnings, the peak of your career. What gave you the courage to step away and take that leap of faith?
It's a good question. I think it was a couple of things. I think it was something that really motivates me is being able to add value and drive significant change and value to a company. Not that I couldn't in that role. It just felt like it had somewhat reached a peak.
So it was diminishing returns.
Yeah, and it was time to turn that over. And I felt like I'd been there too long.
And you had been with that company for decades.
Yeah.
I don't remember how many, but it was a long time.
It was a long time. It was a long time. I mean, I'd lived all over the world. I'd done roles from HR to operations to all kinds of things. But it was just, I needed something new.
Right.
I needed to get that energy back to feel like I could really contribute at that top level.
Right.
Really make a difference.
Right.
And there were still things to be done.
For sure.
But I needed something different.
I just want to commend you for having the courage still to just, I mean, it is a big thing, but a lot of people still wouldn't have the courage to step out just based on that. They would just ride it out to retirement because that's safer and easier.
Yeah.
So I still want to commend you for saying, hey, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing next, but I know I need to do something different for my spirit, for my soul. And so I'm going to step away and then see what comes next.
Yeah. And hindsight, it was a fantastic decision because once I did transition to something new, man, that energy just comes up.
Right.
And you're like,
right.
whoa, okay.
Right. You just feel
this
alive.
This is great.
Right.
This is great.
So then you're sitting in your daughter's guest room. COVID hits. You're thinking, okay, I've turned in my resignation, but I don't have time to think about that right now because we have to figure out how to run this big company globally during COVID, like every other company was struggling with. What happened next?
Well, you know, it was 24/7. I mean, it was craziness there. And we were all building the plane as we were flying it with COVID.
Right.
Nobody knew the answer.
Right.
So it was just take care of your people and your employees the best you know how right now.
Right.
And try to reach out to as many resources as you can in other companies to see what they're doing.
Right.
Are they doing it better? We were writing the guidebook every single day. So it was hard. So then come July of 2020, so I stepped away from my role.
Okay.
So now I'm unemployed in my daughter's guest room. You know,
it's usually the other way around,
exactly.
where your daughter's in your guest room, right?
Yeah, bless her for being patient because it was a 3-bedroom townhouse and dad and mom moved back in. And talk about maybe a little stress on her side. But now I need to look for something new. And it became apparent really quickly that I was pretty uncomfortable without a mission, without a sense of purpose. Honestly, my identity was completely tied up in that job. And without that, I was really uncomfortable. I was nervous. I was anxious. I was trying to manage everybody else's lives around because I'm used to that.
So your daughter's going to give you an eviction notice pretty quickly.
Exactly. Exactly. And we kept getting the, how long is this going to last conversation.
How did that feel? You say you're anxious, you're nervous, you're uncomfortable. Did you recognize already, Sherry, at that point that your identity was tied up in your job? Or did you not know that till later?
No, it really became apparent during that.
When you let it go. And you're sitting in this.
And now I'm sitting in this space and I'm not that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
then what are you?
Exactly. Yeah. And that was a big question for me. And just sitting with me was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Really uncomfortable.
And did you find ways to make peace with that, or did you just search for ways to distract from that, which is the normal?
It was the distraction.
Right.
So I didn't come to peace with it until later.
Okay.
But now looking back, I'm like, oh, I get it.
Oh,
Oh, I get it.
So you did what most people do, which is like, this sucks. This is really uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
got to find something
I
to
got to
do
find something
right
to do.
effing now.
Man,
Right.
I was on the interview path, on the interview trail, which wasn't easy either because
During
now all of
COVID.
a sudden every decision is made remotely. You don't meet anybody. So that connection, it's super hard to decide, is that the right opportunity?
Yeah, especially in HR roles, right? And then
Well-
senior HR roles as well. How do you fit in the how's the company culture? What can you really add?
Exactly.
You know?
It was not an easy time and process for anyone who was in that transition period during that COVID timeframe. It was 6 months. So I was essentially without a job for 6 months. Probably one of the most uncomfortable 6 months of my life, where most people would probably sit back and go, wow, I got 6 months. I can relax. I can do whatever I want.
Right.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was stressful for me.
I think there's more people in that category than you would realize.
It was super stressful.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it.
Right. So you just wanted it to end. Find something else.
I just want
and
a
let's,
job.
Let's get this.
Yeah.
let's
I
get this
wanted
show
to go
back on the
do
road.
something. So
Right.
now I can be me again.
Right. Interesting. So now I can be me again. So you really still were completely identified with your professional.
Completely.
Because I can't be me if I'm not in that role.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which
Wow.
made me, because at first I was talking, is it time to retire? Is it time to do? And I got like 2.5 days into that not having a job. And I'm like, yeah, no. We're not doing that. I am so not ready for that.
Right.
So then forward to early 2021, I step into my new role, which was crazy. It was fantastic opportunity to add value. But we're still in COVID. So I'm
Right.
still doing the role from my daughter's guest room.
Right.
Haven't met my boss, haven't met anyone.
Wow.
So really jumping into this on faith, it was more of, as I got into this 3 months into it, more of a challenge than originally thought. We had more to do, which is
Right.
fantastic for me because I'm
And
like,
this
I
is a
see
multinational, multicultural M&A company. So it's quite complex. I mean, what was coming
Incredibly
together, right?
complicated.
You had Europe, you have Asia, you have North America. And if I remember right, I mean, this company hadn't been put together very long. So they was still trying to work everything out.
Yeah, incredibly complicated and quite honestly, walking into it in a crisis mode. Okay.
Right.
But didn't know it was crisis mode yet.
Oh, wow.
And so
When did you know that? Especially if you're doing it from your daughter's bedroom.
now it was pretty quick.
Okay, but pretty quick you realized. But
I
you hadn't met
realized.
anybody yet. You're trying to do everything
Correct.
virtually.
Correct.
And you realize the house
Yeah.
is on fire.
Yeah. So then we start down the path, the journey, and it's a lot because it's there's a lot to do. We now have a mission.
So did you feel better immediately from that, from this discomfort of 6 months of not knowing what to do with
I
yourself?
did.
Okay.
I did.
So you
'cause
got a little more of the
I'm
drug.
in my groove.
Yeah.
I'm in my groove.
Right.
And you know the groove.
Right. Yeah, I
you
know the
get in
groove.
that.
I know
and
the
you
groove.
get that addiction.
Yep.
to
Exactly. That's why I
that.
said the word drug. It's the drug, the adrenaline that comes
the
from
adrenaline,
yeah.
the dopamine. You're on, you're in the flow, you're going. So I'm there.
Right.
Live in Tennessee. So moved to Tennessee.
I remember that.
Yeah. And
Hey, Art, you know any realtors?
Yeah, exactly.
I found a place I want to buy.
Exactly. September of 21, I wake up one morning and my right shoulder is in just fiery pain, just fiery pain. And I'm like, I slept on it, pinched a
Right.
nerve.
Make up
Something's-
some story to tell ourselves.
something's going on.
Right.
48 hours, it's like, I can't use my right arm, but it's gone after 48 hours. Okay, fine. Everything's good. A couple weeks later, I wake up and it's my left shoulder and my left arm. And I'm like, okay, well, this is odd.
Right.
48 hours, it's gone. So I'm thinking now, okay, now I'm in Italy, I'm traveling, and I'm sitting at a dinner, pretty important dinner. And all of a sudden, my forearm starts to get that same feeling. And by the end of dinner, I can't use my right hand.
They can't move it at all. Holy shit.
And it hurts bad.
And you can't move it. Like when you tell your nerves, but nothing happens.
Well, I can move it, but it hurts so bad
that you
I
can't.
just
You can't
didn't.
override
so
the
now
pain,
I've got
right?
my arm like this, and I'm trying to gut it through this
Right.
really long, the European dinners.
Yes, I do.
It's a really long dinner. And I get back to my hotel and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. This is super weird. But in 48 hours, it's gone. But then 2 days later, it's my whole right arm.
And you haven't sought any medical attention yet. You've sort of somehow it's going to work itself out. I'm busy. I'm in my groove. I'm in my flow. It's going to disappear.
Yeah, exactly. But now this moving around stuff is starting to freak me out. So I get back home, and this one lasted longer. I mean, I'm on the plane and I can't lift my luggage. I can't move. I can't. Wow. I mean, it's just excruciating pain. Wow. And it doesn't, the Advil, the Aleve, the stuff doesn't help. Is not doing anything. Right, and I'm like, something's wrong. I go to the doctor and I got, I don't know, just the synchronicity or whatever of having the right person at the right time who said, wow, that sounds like Lyme disease. Have you had a tick bite? And I said, yeah, I had one in July.
And what is this now? Is this August, September?
This is the end of September.
Okay.
So it's been almost 2.5 months since then. And they're like, yeah, we need to test.
Right.
And now looking back, you hear these horror stories that people go years
without knowing. Yeah.
Without knowing.
And then it becomes life-threatening or neurological damage, permanent neurological damage.
So lucky that the person went, hey, that sounds like that. Got the tests back, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Lyme disease. In the end, I went to functional doctors and stuff. Ended up, I had probably 4 different tick-borne illnesses all at once.
Wow.
Probably had something from Europe years ago that was never tested, but had all of the antibodies, the markers.
That shows you've been fighting it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So go on a 3-week intensive antibiotic stuff. Get all that out of the system.
Right.
Kicks me into rheumatoid arthritis.
Lovely.
Which is an autoimmune.
This is before you got into the functional medicine, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're doing the traditional medicine and you're killing the one thing, but you're creating another problem.
Created another problem. And so I'm like, okay, great. All of that tick stuff is gone, but I feel awful.
Right.
I have brain fog. I am exhausted. I mean, I am dragging myself through the day and I hurt. I hurt bad. My joints, my everything hurts. And they said, yeah, you've got aggressive rheumatoid arthritis.
Wow.
They said, you've pegged every marker.
And is that common that's caused by antibiotics, by heavy doses of antibiotics?
It's not the antibiotics. It was the tick.
Oh,
tick bite triggers the immune system.
Okay. And starts attacking itself, basically.
Now your body's in absolute overdrive.
Okay.
So now I have a crazy job.
Right. But this is all going on while you're in the middle of crisis.
Travel.
Yeah.
Just opening up the travel because it's fall of 21.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel awful.
Right.
And so the first thing that everybody does when they find out they have a condition is go do the research.
Right.
And that's awful. That's a horrible thing because you start reading every book and
it paints a really bleak picture and puts your mind in a space that's not helping you get better.
And I wasn't in a good place.
Right.
I wasn't in a good place and I was hiding it pretty good.
Right.
And going through all the doctors.
Sherry, what was that like when you say you weren't in a good place? Like at your darkest times, what were you thinking? What was your mindset?
I remember one time going to the doctor and they said, this is aggressive. You're probably going to have to give up your job.
Wow. So you just refound yourself.
Yeah.
And now you're going to have to let
it go.
And now
you're probably going to have to give up your job because this is going to be a lot for you to fight this. And it's going to destroy your body with all the stress and the travel and everything that you're doing. And we recommend you start thinking about that transition.
To leave your job.
Talk about a transition. Yeah. We're a year after, not even a year, 9 months after going through that and going, I'm not doing that.
Right. I'm not taking time off. I got to do this.
And now I'm thrown right back into that.
And did they think that you would get better if you quit your job, or would you end up in a wheelchair pretty quickly as well? What was the thought at the time?
No, they just said, hey, so you don't end up like that where you can't, because there were days when I felt like I could walk. Wow. Because it hurt. Yeah. It was just painful. And they said, so you don't go down that path where you destroy your life.
Right. You need to stop and focus on your health.
And you need to get this in control. And that means you're probably going to have to change your lifestyle.
Right.
To manage the stress, to manage the energy, to manage
to
this.
give your body what it needs to make your health a priority so your body can recover.
Exactly. You start down this path of medicine, and it's such a journey.
Yeah.
It's such a journey. And this works and that works, and this one, the side effects are worse than the symptoms. It's a frustrating process.
Yeah, it's medicine 2.0 where we are today is very isolated. It's very fix one symptom without really thinking about how it connects to the system.
Right.
And it's very frustrating.
So then I went through the functional medicine path.
Yeah.
I'm still traveling. I'm still working, not really being so open about it at work, but gutting my way through it. And
did you have conversations with yourself then, Sherry, about am I killing myself? So what made you decide to keep going at work versus health? Did you think you could win both of them? Or did you say, you know what, I know I can't survive without work, so I'm going to do it anyway? Where was your mindset at the time?
It was more of, hey, I made a commitment to see this through and this mission. And there's still so much unknown on the health side here. It's not time yet. I need more. I need more. I need to learn more. I need to understand more. Let's get into this a little further. We'll just gut our way through it.
Right.
But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what am I going to be in 10 years?
Right.
Am I going to be able to do anything?
Right.
Because I've always been super active and traveling.
Right.
And there's that fear.
Right.
And again, okay, if I don't have work, who am I?
Right. So that was there, but it wasn't the main driver. The main driver was sort of like, let's learn a little bit more.
Correct.
I can gut it out. I'm strong. I can gut it out a little bit more until I see a bigger picture.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just, well, even if I know I'm killing myself, I'm going to do it anyway because it's the only thing I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I went through the functional medicine. Let's try to look at a whole. At one time, I think I was taking 30 pills a day.
Right. And very restrictive eating as well.
Oh, yeah. Then the diet
medicine,
piece.
Right?
I mean, I went down. And one thing I did find is food triggered it.
You're right. Triggered the arthritis.
It was almost guaranteed if I ate certain foods, I'd get a flare and it'd be a bad flare. So I went to autoimmune protocol diet, which is incredibly restrictive.
Right.
At some point that didn't work and I went to 100% carnivore.
Wow.
Because about the only thing I could eat that didn't make me feel bad was meat.
Wow.
And what really made me feel good is if I was fasting.
Right. Just not eating.
Just not eating at all.
But that only can go so long.
Yeah, so that's not sustainable.
Maybe a few days, but
So really playing with the diet, playing with different things, that's where I was at. But I had a moment where I realized that I was starting to identify with the disease.
Scary.
Yeah. And that was a bit of a mental turning point for me.
So before you had your primary identity, almost exclusive identity was work.
Yeah.
And now you're starting also to identify with
being a sick person.
Like, I am rheumatoid arthritis.
I am.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm going to have it forever. It's not curable. And my life I'm limited.
Yeah. The way I knew it is over. Not my life is over, but the way I knew it, the way it was before is over.
And it was just one day I just said, no, no.
Where did that come from?
I started doing meditation work probably the summer of 22.
22. Okay.
So
now you had
I've
this
gone
big
through,
attack in September. You understood it was Lyme disease. A couple weeks later, it was really severe arthritis. You've been doing this functional medicine.
Yeah. So I started that in late 21.
So was functional medicine the trigger to start meditation?
No.
Okay.
No.
So your functional medicine doctor didn't tell you need to meditate too? Mine has told me you have to meditate as well, more than you are.
Yeah. He said, you can do these things. But no, it wasn't really a big push. I had read a book in probably 2017, 2018, Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, yeah.
You're the Placebo.
Oh, okay. Becoming supernatural. Yeah, I read that one.
And as I was going through the functional medicine journey and it wasn't working, I said, okay, there's got to be some. Then the regular traditional medicine journey, and it wasn't working. And I'm on all these medicines.
Right.
I'm like, okay, we need to do something different.
Right.
And so I got into the meditation.
So you're doing his 20-minute morning meditation, 20-minute evening meditation.
Yeah. And I even went deeper.
What did that look like?
Usually it was get up in the morning, do 20 minutes to an hour, sometimes 20 minutes in the afternoon, and sometimes an hour to 90 minutes at night.
Wow. And this is also why I can't imagine the Sherry that I knew or the Art Blanchford that I knew carving out time for that because you were on 24/7 before, as I was, right? Whether it was the long dinners or the plane rides or whatever.
Plane rides are great for meditation.
Yeah, that's true. That's the one thing. Journaling and meditation on planes, I've done a lot.
They're great for that.
But so you were doing anywhere from 2 to 3 times a day, minimum of 20 minutes each, up to an hour each.
Yeah.
And in the Joe Dispenza model.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's when that realized I was in the middle of a meditation.
And you had this inspiration.
And
I call it downloads.
Just clicked just like that. And it was, this is not me.
Wow.
This is not me.
Wow.
I am not this.
And that was the tipping point.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
And what changed? So you had this, and I call download or inspiration, whatever you want to call it, right? Something came in that was really clear and you knew it at that point.
Yeah.
If anything, in your outward life after that, or was it only on the inward life? It was everything on the outward life too. Tell me about that.
It was just, I sat down in that meditation, one person, and got up another one.
Wow. And how many months or weeks have you been doing the meditation before that one dropped in?
Probably 4 months.
4 months. of doing it
Yeah.
really regularly. I mean,
Yes.
to this level, at least 40 minutes per day, if not 2.5 hours per day.
And I could feel that when I got up every day, even up to that point, I felt better. There was something there. I was more at peace with the condition. I could cope with everything.
So you could be okay with whatever
I could be
was
okay with
in the
journey.
present moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I could be okay with the journey. But that one day I got up and went, no, I'm not that anymore.
Wow.
I'm
and then
not
what
that.
shifted? Like you said, everything changed.
Everything
What
shifted.
changed? What changed?
I mean, I didn't identify with that sick person. It's like, okay, my body has something, but that's not me.
Right.
My body's sick.
Right.
And I have these conditions, but that's not me anymore.
Right.
I'm done.
Right. So it's a third person observing the situation.
Yeah.
Right.
But what I found is that transferred into my work.
That was going to be my next question. Are you still your work?
Okay, well, I'm not that either.
Interesting.
And so
having been so attached to that for so many years,
Yeah.
the work, when you realized you weren't your job, when you weren't your title,
yeah,
was that scary? Was that freeing? What happened? Because before, when you had the break between companies, it was horrible.
it was horrible.
And now you've had that realization while you're in the job, wait a minute, I'm not my title. I'm not that. How did that feel?
Liberating.
So it was freeing, like, wow.
Absolutely.
And how did that change how you do your work?
It changed that I still work hard.
Sure.
I still have incredibly aggressive goals. I still go after it, but it's not my identity. And I'm not attached to the outcome.
Right. So you'll do your part, but whether it comes to what it does or not is not like, it doesn't make or break who you are.
Correct. That's not me. That's not what defines me.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean I don't care.
Right.
And that's a really important distinction because I care a lot.
Right. Sure.
And it's important to me that we accomplish what we say we're going to accomplish, but that still doesn't define who I am.
Right.
That's not my identity. It's not me. And if it were to go away tomorrow, it's okay. It's okay.
How did that come to be? That if it were to go away tomorrow, it's okay. Did that also rise with you out of that chair of that meditation?
Yeah.
So that it really was just letting go of the outcome of everything.
Of everything. It was like this realization that I'm whole and I'm perfect just the way I am. And what happens out here, or even with my body, it doesn't matter. I'm okay. But what it's been able to do with work is I have a different perspective.
So before we leave there, because there was something inside there, Sherry, you said a lot about what's not you. And you said a couple of things of what you are is that you're okay and you're perfect as you are. Is there more of what you can say about who you are? If those things are who you are not, who are you? What are you?
I just am.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the hardest question there is, but it's really powerful for someone that's had such an identity.
Right.
And then you stood up one day and let it go after 4 months of intense meditation practice.
Yeah.
And to be then that I just am.
I just am.
And I'm perfect. And whatever happens outside, I still care. I still love. I still work hard. I still go for it. And I'm not attached to any of it, including even my body.
Correct.
That's a very powerful place
Yeah.
to get to, Sherry. Very powerful place.
Yeah.
Congratulations, first of all.
No, thank you. I mean, it's hard to articulate how much it's changed.
Wow. I have all these things going in my head because I'm, questions, but I felt it the last time I saw you. And that's why I was like, I got to have Sherry on the podcast. I got to figure this out. I'm curious, but let's talk about then with work, how does your job, how does your company look different today because of your meditation practice, because of what you learned, because of you recognizing that you are not your job? How does your job look differently? How does your company look different?
To be honest, I think I can go bigger. I know. No, I don't think. I know.
Interesting.
I go bigger.
Interesting. So a few months before, you're worried about your job killing you. And not just like you're worried about it. Your doctors are basically telling you to stop working because it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And now you have this peace. You know you're not your disease. You know you're not your job, which it's completely contradictory. It's an oxymoron. You're no longer connected to it, and yet you can handle more.
Yes.
How does that work?
I think just because I can play a little bit, you said be the observer, where I can watch it. I'm not attached to it.
Right.
I can be more objective about certain things. I can have fun with it.
Wow. Say a little bit about that. 'Cause I mean, that's like,
I can have fun with it. Yeah.
I mean, not just the satisfaction that comes from doing something good and making change, but actually have fun with it, playful in a day-to-day
Absolutely,
perspective.
but why not?
Yeah, why not? But how do you actually bring that into being, or how does it feel for you when you're having fun with it? What does that look like?
Because I can say, hey,
Right.
what if we did this?
Right.
What if we did that? Hey, we have a really crazy journey ahead of us. God, play big. Let's be audacious about this.
Right.
Let's go after it. And I don't have that fear of, God, if Sherry fails, I'm going to take it personally. It's going to drag me down. It's going to do this. It's just gone.
Right.
That doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So I get to look at it of this very objective place.
Right.
Not attached to the outcome as far as from my identity.
Right. Because you are not this, you can play however you want to in the way that you think is actually best, because you don't have the risk of failure because you're not that.
Yeah.
I mean, it still could fail, but the freedom to play bigger is actually going to give better results than if you're
exactly
hedging your bets and
I'm
worried.
not in a contracted place.
Right.
It's an expanded place.
Right.
I come from a very different point of view now.
Right.
Yeah. And I think in a way I can actually even be harder on myself in some ways. Before, when you talk about being hard on yourself, it's beating yourself
Right.
up. I didn't get it done. I didn't
Right.
do this. I should have done that. I should have done that. Shame on you. You're crappy.
Right.
You're this. You know the
Right.
voice.
I know the voice, the critic. Yeah.
Yeah. And you set that aside because, again, that's not you.
Right.
And you come at it of the coach of, okay, yeah, we should have done something different there. That wasn't
Right.
so good.
Right.
All right. We own up to it.
Right.
Okay. How could we have done it better? What could I have done better?
Right.
But it's not a personal critique.
And that way you have the freedom to really see it.
Exactly.
Because you're not afraid of what you're going to see that might be
Exactly.
damaging who you are.
Exactly. So now I can
Interesting.
actually be even maybe a little bit more of a tough critic
Right.
on that.
Right. But a fair critic and an honest
Exactly.
critic, and not a shame. I always talk about the difference between guilt and shame.
Yes.
Right? Guilt is I made a mistake and how can I do better?
Yeah.
Healthy. Shame is I am bad.
And it's not either one
Right,
of those because
right.
I don't think either one of those is valuable.
Right. But
in
it's
some
just how do I
aspect.
learn from it and what can I do better?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very objective. And
And it's not how I can be better. It's just how can I perform better, or how can I be more effective
yes, if I had that to do over again, what would I have done differently?
with no judgment and
With
no
none.
no
No
shoulds
judgment.
and no shame and
Yeah.
Is that the main thing that you think allows you to be more or to handle more?
It's one of them. I think the bigger thing is just that piece of it's not my identity.
it's
I'm
not
something
you.
different.
Right.
And it brings an enormous amount of peace. So you're not
Right.
all wound up and anxious. Now, don't get me wrong. There are days
For sure. For sure.
I have to go back and go, remember
And
that?
when was the day? Do you
That
remember
was
the day?
I don't remember the day, but it was sometime in September of 2022.
22. So 1 year later.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your meditation practice look like today?
Same.
Same. So you're still doing at least 20 minutes morning and evening, sometimes in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
and sometimes longer.
Yeah, typically like this morning, I get up early because I'm global job. It's early. So
Right.
I'm up at 3:30.
Wow. When do you go to bed then? 6:30?
Around 8.
8 o'clock.
Around 8, yeah.
So you get 7.5 hours of sleep,
Yeah.
sort of the bare minimum.
Yeah, it's 20 minutes. I've now sprinkled in breath work.
Mm-hmm. Is
So
it Ayurvedic breath work or?
different kinds.
Okay. Yeah, it's so powerful as well.
different types of breath work. And
Yeah.
But this morning it was 20 minutes of breath work, little meditation. My midday is not necessarily meditation, more just sit with myself for a little while and reset,
Mm-hmm.
make sure my mind's in the right place.
So you
My-
just turn everything off for a
my
little while.
energy,
Maybe you're
my-
outside, maybe you're in your office, maybe you're at home.
Yeah, and usually it only takes about 10 minutes. You know,
Just
it's just more a check-in. Where you at? Where's your
Mhm.
energy at? Where's your mind at? And then at night, then I usually do a longer one, anywhere from an hour to 90 minutes
Okay.
with some breath work in there. But night and day on my health issues. I mean, that is probably the single biggest thing. I mean, I'm still on the medicine journey. I have good days and bad days, but I don't worry about it.
You sat down in that chair in September of 22. So that's, let's call it 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago. You sat down in that chair, fully identified with your job, starting to identify in a scary way with your disease,
Mhm.
and not seeing a way out from all the different medicines you were trying, whether it was traditional medicine or functional medicine. And then you stood up from that chair, knowing you were not your disease, knowing you're not your job. That was not your identity. That's not who you are. You just are. And you can observe these things and you can see these things and you can be okay regardless of pain in your body, or if things work out exactly the way you want them to at work or not. You can
Mhm.
still be okay. How did your health change after that? I mean, were you physically able to do more stuff, or were you just able to handle the pain more, or did the pain recede, or how did your health journey go?
Ups and downs. So actually, after that meditation, I went into remission for about a year.
Oh, wow.
Where I didn't really have much pain at all.
So almost turned off at that point.
Yeah.
For 1 year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Got sick again late last year. Just a cold, flu, something just kicks me right back into it.
But we should remind people too, you're also running a schedule of travel like a 25-year-old.
Yes.
I mean, I know your schedule, and I used to do it. I wouldn't want to do it today. So that's enough that your body needs some time to come down and have a cold or a flu and rest.
But
basically.
It kicked me right back into
the
into
rheumatoid arthritis as well.
And stuff. I still deal with it. But again, it's not me.
Right.
I deal with it. I change my diet. I do my meditation.
Right.
I know that when I get into that flare, the best thing I can do for myself is go into the meditation and get my mind right. And then quite regularly, I'll take a longer time and actually step away for a couple of days and actually just deep.
So turn off your phone and turn off and just be present with yourself.
Yeah.
Some sort of silent retreat or meditation retreat, even if it's just at your house or whatever.
Right. And that helps. And I've been able to manage it.
How often do you do that? Like once a year or twice a year, or as far as stepping away?
2-3 times a year.
2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah, 2-3 times.
I'm finding for me, I need at least 2 times a year where I'm out, for me, either by myself or if I'm with people, I need to be in nature, like camping or something, like really away.
Yeah.
And the phone has to be turned off.
Yeah.
Like to me, it has to be completely disconnected.
Yeah. I guess I don't 100% disconnect, but I spend more time in that state.
Okay.
Just helps to kind of just tweak it, reset it a little bit.
But still, the main thing you feel like you can do for your health, for keeping your immune system proper, is the meditation, is the time with yourself. It's really checking in with, I'll say, who you are, reconnecting with who you are, and dissociating from all the...
Yeah, just getting into that place where you're not identifying with that and essentially not identifying with anything. I mean, the meditation, you know it. It's about just calming the mind and calming the body and controlling it.
Right. And being present.
Being present.
Being the observer. This week, I've been, for whatever reason, I've had a lot of depressive thoughts this week. And yesterday morning, I got up and I was looking at it and I was just reminded by something from a Sam Harris meditation about just be the observer. So I started to talk about it in third person.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's Art having some depressive feelings right now. And that by itself was enough to step back and dissociate from it, to let it melt away.
Go.
Right.
Let it go.
To realize that I'm not that.
Yeah.
Right. Is there anything that you would do differently on this journey? Looking back, I know it's a lot of people I've talked to, it's been many years. This has been really sort of 2 years since you started this transition, or maybe 4 if you talk about stepping away from the first big corporate job. But really the shift was the chair, I'm going to call it, the one meditation, where there was a tipping point. I want to be clear too that it's not like one meditation will do that for you, but the 4 months of concentrated meditation got you to a point where there was a tipping point, a precipitation point at one point where things were different, which is always the case.
Right.
There's always a ton of prep work, and then all of a sudden you're successful overnight. Everyone says,
you,
oh, wow,
you
you're
don't
overnight
just,
success, but that's never.
Yeah, you don't just sit down and get there.
But 4 months of, and then you ended up there.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything that you would do different?
No. Now that I look back at it, I mean, having rheumatoid arthritis and everything, it's not fun,
right?
But it's a blessing in some ways that it happened, because it allowed me to have that shift.
Right.
And I think I'm a better executive. I'm a better leader. We can accomplish more because I come at it from a completely different space. And I hear this from a lot of people who kind of do the meditation and that type of thing, that sometimes the bad things are the good things in hindsight.
Right.
You know, people go, how can that possibly be?
Right.
But it created who I am today.
Right.
And I don't know that I would gotten to this place without it. So I'm thankful for it.
Right. And I would even say it didn't create who you are today. It brought you home to who you are.
Yeah, well said.
Right.
Absolutely well said.
Right.
It's not like becoming something different.
No.
It's peeling away all the stuff you're not.
Right. That's well said. I love that. That's really great. And we've talked a little bit about this, but what's different in your company because of who you are showing up as now? What's different in your company?
We've been able to execute some projects that are, to be honest, people didn't believe in them.
Right.
When we,
They're too audacious.
They were big.
Right.
They're big.
Right.
And flawless execution. I mean, we've been able to do them, believe in them, execute them, crazy timeline. I mean, we work at speeds. We'll do more in 3 months than most companies will do in a year.
Wow.
We work at an insane speed, an insane schedule. I've been around the world twice in the last 6 weeks.
Right. And
traveling and it just touching with base with people. And it won't stop. I mean, we have a mission. We have something to
once
get done.
So getting the results, everybody can appreciate. What's in the wake of the results? Is it death and destruction? Or
No.
how are the people? Because that's what I'm really driving at. I don't mean to say bad. It's not easy to get results and do things intense and at insane speeds, but anybody can do it for a short period of time.
Yeah.
But often there's a lot of death and destruction left behind.
Yeah. And the things we've had to do aren't easy. And from an HR perspective, what sometimes that looks like restructuring and some things that are really hard. But one of the things that's a strong value to me is hard things don't mean that you don't do them in the right way.
That's right.
You have to do them in the right way. You have to come at it from a place of respecting people, making sure that you're doing the hard things in the right way, empathetic way, and with the people in mind.
Yeah.
And we did that in some really tough situations. And that's got to be the guiding principle.
Absolutely. And the people that are on the journey with you, has your new way of being affected them? Your team around you, your colleagues, your bosses, your direct reports, and the way the company is run, because of this change in you, is it more sustainable? Or are people still burning out? And how does it feel differently than maybe when you and I worked together 10 years ago?
That's a great question. And it's not where I'd like it to be just because of the place we're at in the journey. Mm-hmm. It's a lot.
Right.
I talk a lot with people I'm hiring, with my team, about resilience.
Right.
You've got to find that resilience in you.
Right.
What works for me isn't going to work for everybody.
Right.
So figure out what that is that allows you to be resilient. We're not going to slow down. We're not compromising the mission. And it's not for everybody. I think it's also being honest with people.
Right.
That, hey, it either is or isn't for you to work at this speed and at this level of intensity. It's okay to admit that it's not.
Right. No, and that's a good to recognize and good to help people recognize if they don't want to as well.
Yeah. And I'm super honest with people that we're bringing in that get ready. It's going to be a lot.
Right.
So it's about just being open with people.
But even with it being a lot, again, the energy I feel being in your presence compared to where it was 5 years ago, even with you flying around the world twice in 6 weeks, right? It's very different.
Yeah.
And it feels to me two things. One is it feels sustainable. And the second is it feels like living. I don't know the right word, but it feels like living instead of doing, something like that. It feels like living from somewhere instead of hiding from something. It feels very different, right? So even though you still have this crazy schedule and you're working hard, I feel a centeredness. I don't feel an anxious doing compulsive activity feeling that I recognize in myself and I also recognized in you before.
Right.
So that feels very different to me.
I would say it's a different energy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It's not activity for the sake of activity. Look at me, I'm busy.
Right.
Look at me, I'm flying around the world. Look at me, I'm stacked. I have pages and pages of actions. I mean, it's not what it's about.
Right.
Which I think in the past kind of took pride and
For
identified with that. Look at how
I'm a
much
hard
I
worker
have to
and
do.
that word, I have to do. Right?
Yeah, like how much I have to do. One thing is also accepting you're never going to get it done. I mean, we're executives. There's always going to be something that fills that empty spot on your to-do list.
Sure.
And
if you can accept that, you can carve out 2 or 3 hours for meditation, which you never could do before because you have to get it all done.
And it's just not possible.
Right.
Just accepting that, okay, I prioritize, I do what I need to do, but the to-do list is never going to be empty.
Right.
And it's okay.
Right. And
it's okay.
Also maybe fine and fun because you like to have stuff to do. But accepting that's never going to be empty, you can do it more intentionally.
Exactly. And I think that's a great word. There's a book by Dr. Wayne Dyer.
I love Wayne Dyer. I've seen him live a few times.
About intention and about living with intention. And I think that's specifically is the difference, is I get to live with intention now.
Right.
I get to be more aware.
Yeah.
Intentional about what I'm spending my time on, intentional about my energy for me and for the people around me, and just kind of enjoy it.
Right.
This is life.
That's right. I love your choice of framing of I get to instead of I have to.
Yeah.
Right. That I get to. I get to have this life. I get to manage my health in a way that I can still fly around the world and do things that bring me joy, and that you realize that it is your life. Right.
Yeah.
But to get to shift from have to. In WA, in the back of the book, there's a list of these 30 affirmations. And one of them is there's nothing I have to do and nowhere I have to go.
Right.
I said that over and over again so many times because I really thought that I was, I have to. No, actually you don't. There's actually nothing. You have to do.
Yeah.
You get to. And you get to choose not to if you don't
Yeah.
want to, right? Now, it's really interesting. I'm curious about one other aspect. How has this transition affected your most important relationships?
Earth shattering. Again, it's the presence, being more intentional with that, being more reflective, caring about how you say things, how you express yourself, how you're showing up, how I'm showing up in those relationships is really important. I was never overly emotional at home, and that's just not who I am typically. I'm not super good at expressing things. And this has allowed me to do that, freed up to be able to be a more loving mom, a more open mom, not so judgmental on them either, on the family, on the kids, and being able to step back and be for them what they need instead of what I think they need.
So that's about awareness, right? Again, about observation, to be able to be present to their needs and respond to that instead of some picture of you have of your life with them a certain way, trying to make them fit that picture.
Exactly. Or pushing them to be something that they aren't.
Right.
Or what's your life plan? What are you doing now? What are you doing that? What are you doing? Why aren't you doing this?
Why aren't you traveling around the world once or twice every 6 weeks?
Yeah. And I never wanted that for them, but I wanted them to be successful, but they got to go through the same process. So let them.
That's
and just be there.
That's right.
Just be there to support. And
I've even quit thinking about success for my kids. I think about having a good life.
Yeah.
Because success to me has so much baggage, so many triggers, so much stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And what does it really mean? In my mind, somehow it means money and having a lot of money. And I've changed for my kids that my expectation to, well, how can I help them to have a good life for them? What their definition of a good life is.
Right. I don't define that for them. It's up to them to define success.
Right.
But again, I can say, but don't get caught up and identify with it.
Right.
Don't identify
you have
with
that.
it.
Now you have that personal experience and that truth to come from.
Take a step back.
Right. If you could give one tool to our listeners to help them make whatever the transition is that they're facing better, one piece of advice, one thing maybe you would tell your younger self, but something that if everyone listening could take away one thing, what would you give them?
I think you don't have to choose this or this. You talked about that earlier. You don't have to choose life or a career. You can have both, but don't identify. I think, as I said, don't identify with that. I'm all with the meditation. I'd love to tell people to go do that because you're going to learn.
It's okay to tell people that,
so
Sherry.
much.
We know it's your experience, but it's okay. If you think that's the most important thing, it's okay to say that.
Find that practice, whether it's yoga or meditation or breath work or take a walk in nature or exercise or riding a bike. Find whatever that is that allows you to come back into yourself, to find that center, and then be open to listen to what comes up. Your brain, your heart, they're incredibly intelligent.
Right.
And they're going to send you some pretty tough, direct messages. And you just need to be open to listen when you're in that place. So find that place, that activity.
So whatever it is that can bring you to center.
And then listen.
And then open up and listen.
Open up and listen.
Yeah, that's...
You'll hear it.
Great advice. I typically ask at this point, where can listeners find out more about you? Because a lot of my guests have their own books and podcasts and stuff like that. Yeah. Is there anything you would like to share about anything else if people want to find out more about you or anything else that you would like to share?
I'm just the typical corporate executive. I'm in
Actually, Sherry,
LinkedIn.
You're not the typical corporate executive.
LinkedIn and stuff like that. But to be honest, I'm not super active.
So if somebody did have a question for you and they wanted to ask about your meditation practice, for example, they could contact you on LinkedIn.
They could contact me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Well,
absolutely.
It's been a pleasure, Sherry. Ooh, touches my heart. I'm really happy. Even if I'm crying, I'm really happy to see the transition that you've made. You deserve it to know who you are, to come home to yourself.
Yeah.
And
we
it's
all
really,
deserve it.
Exactly. It's really gratifying to me to see it. And it seems incredible to me. I'll use that word. It seems incredible to me that you managed to do it while having the job that you have. I don't know how. I learned a lot today and I really appreciate that. But that's incredible. And I think you're the first person that I know that's done that.
Well, it's not something that's unattainable. It's out there for everybody. It's there. I don't want to say it's out there. It's in here.
It's in here.
It's in here.
It's in here. It's
and
available to all of us.
It's in there for all of us. So you just have to take the time to find it and listen to it. And you don't have to go anywhere.
Right. You have to go in.
You have to go in.
Right.
Yeah.
But take the time. I think that's maybe where we'll end on. I really think speaking to myself, I'm still not quite willing to take the time.
Mm.
And I think that's good advice for anyone, and to listen to how much more fun, more full your life is.
Yeah.
Even taking that time out of normal life, obviously it's a worthwhile investment.
Absolutely.
So Thank you for joining me in person here today on one of your few days at one of your homes in Tennessee. But I really appreciate it, Sherry. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Art. It was a pleasure, and it's great to reflect. It's been fun.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I can't wait to hear what action you are taking. Connect with me on LinkedIn or our website, lifeintransition.online, and let me know. Let a friend know too. It could be a huge encouragement to them and keep you on the track. Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and it would mean a lot to me if you left a review and shared this episode with a friend. If you want to learn more about me and what I do when I'm not podcasting, please visit me at artblanchford.com. Thank you for listening. Together, let's make the most of life in transition.